Hey guys, if you are new to RV life or even just thinking about RV life, let me do you a favor. I have made some absolutely fantastic mistakes, like truly A-plus mistakes. And I have no doubt that I'm going to make more. But if you stick around, I'm going to tell you about some of the very first mistakes that I made and the last one I made with the help of my father, who I love so much. Hi, Dad. But that mistake actually cost me a TV, a fireplace, and eventually my inverter, not to mention a huge boatload of sanity. Yes, these mistakes are extremely rookie, but that's exactly where I was over a year ago. So I'm not afraid to admit them. Just maybe think of me as maybe the experience that you probably need, but don't want to actually experience yourself. So without further ado, let's get into it. Mistake number one, thinking anything and everything will fit easily through the front door and be easily placed in the spot you intend for it to go. Now, I have absolutely no idea why I thought that. I mean, I knew the front door of my rig was smaller than a residential door. I absolutely knew it. I mean, I'm an interior designer, which is why it pains me to admit this mistake at all. But this is definitely something that the me a year ago would have loved to hear from the me now. And seriously, I am only human after all. And mistakes are a part of life. And I have kind of just learned to accept them. Having said that, and in my defense, it wasn't just the front door that was the issue. It was also the wall in front of the front door and the island in the kitchen. The way my rig is set up is that as soon as you walk in the front door, there's another wall with a door to the bunk room. I did actually measure the width of the front door, but I neglected to measure the height of the door or the width of the hallway. And the reason that I'm telling you this is because one of the very first things that I wanted to do when I moved into my rig was to lose the tiny, barely works refrigerator and replace it with an actual residential refrigerator. I mean, I am living full time in my rig, so I definitely need the space in the refrigerator. And I also need the knowledge that what I put in my freezer will actually freeze and the food in my fridge will not spoil in 5 minutes. Well, it might have taken a little longer than 5 minutes, but I'm just saying. So, of course, with the width of the door in mind, I found a really nice residential refrigerator that would fit perfectly through the doorway once I removed the actual doors on the fridge, of course. And for the record, I did buy the new fridge with the money that I got when I sold the original RV fridge. So I felt really, really good about the whole thing. And then the new fridge came. It was delivered to the campground I was in, and it was left at my front door. I was pretty excited. I do really wish that I had had the inclination to start a YouTube channel then, because I would have recorded the whole process. And let me tell you, you guys would probably not be able to stop laughing for weeks, maybe months. Anyway, to make this long story short, my sister, her husband, and I struggled an entire day. Like, I mean, 8+ hours at least in the summer heat, nonetheless, to get that thing in this rig. It was a lot like watching the Three Stooges, probably. I have no doubt that there is absolutely no way for me to find the words to describe what this scene of us actually looked like. I really just need you guys to trust me when I say taking a window out, gathering 20 of your closest friends for wine and charcuterie, and having a refrigerator lifting and installing party, and then reinstalling said window would have been 1,000 times easier than the way the three of us did this. But we did eventually get that bad boy in place. I have yet to hook up the water, but it's on my list. And as you can see, we totally destroyed part of the floor and the bunk room door in the process. But luckily for me, my father visited shortly after and replaced the damaged part of the vinyl flooring with this super cute vinyl tile, which I absolutely love, and I totally would have put it there anyway. The moral of this mistake is, one, if you're buying a brand new rig or even just a rig from any dealer, have them install the upgraded fridge before you leave the showroom. And number two, if number one is not an option, measure everything, including the turn radiuses along the path from the door to the place that you're going. Moving on, mistake number two. This one can easily be chalked up to a newbie mistake, but also in my defense, a little bit of equipment failure. I basically flooded the bathroom via the toilet. I knew that my rig had 3 tanks, 1 black and 2 gray. I also knew where they were and what they were for. What I didn't know was that the water level things inside the tanks don't exactly work that great, especially in the black tank after it's been used and all that nasty sludge is stuck to the sides of the tank. This was also before I was aware of the raunchy smell that comes out of the toilet when you don't use Calgon or some other happy camper tank powder to keep the smell at bay. So when my toilet started wafting this super sour smell, I just acted the way that I thought would be best. I emptied the tank, and I honestly thought the best way to get rid of any smell coming from that tank would be to just flush the tank with water. Sounds reasonable, right? So I pulled the hose, bringing water into my trailer, and I hooked it up to the black tank flush valve and turned it on. I knew the tank had been emptied, and I also knew that it was a big tank and it would take probably at least 15 to 20 minutes or more to fill completely. I actually had company that day, so I went back inside the trailer and I sat down with them. While, of course, I was watching the level gauge for the tank on my phone via the Bluetooth app connection. And when I first looked at it, it was at the 2/3 full mark. I did think that was kind of fast, but I let it go and I just kept watching it. I figured I had at least another 5 minutes or so before it would even get close to being full. Well, apparently, I was completely wrong. And about 2 minutes later, water came pouring out of the bathroom and down the hallway. And not just any water, black, stinky, gross water. So immediately I ran out to turn off the water and I grabbed about 500 towels to clean that mess up. Again, all of this happened well before I thought about making this channel. So unfortunately for you guys, and yet probably super fortunately for me, there is no video evidence of this nonsense. It did take a ton of towels and a ton of Lysol to get that water and smell out. I have checked since then and rechecked for leaks, but I have seen no evidence of any sort of water permanent damage, which I am super grateful for. So yeah, rookie mistake. Don't walk away from your black tank while it's filling, even if your app says that you've got time. But the real moral of this mistake is that you cannot trust the manufacturer installed water level thingies. You just need to become familiar with what it sounds like when the water level is close to full in your black tank when you flush it, or just use a hose with like a spray nozzle and leave the tank open as you flush it, which is the way that I go now. I have no doubt in my mind that some of you out there have much better ideas, and I would absolutely love to hear them. I'm pretty sure I will never forget the sound or the smell of that black tank water rushing down my hallway. Mistake number 3. Of all the beginner mistakes that I've made, this one has got to take the cake. Allowing my father to play electrician. Before I get into this one, I do want to say that my father has every single good intention in the entire world, and probably more. He would do absolutely anything for me and my siblings. But here's the thing. He lives in the woods, literally in the woods, with his wife and their other woodsy buddies. Their system of getting things done is mostly based on a barter system. Now, in his defense, all of those folks out there in his little woodsy circle come to the table with some sort of life experience. They each have something to offer, like raising chickens, or landscaping, or tree removal, or plumbing, mechanics, electricity. I'm sure you get the idea. So when I went to visit him in my trailer and stay in his backyard for a couple of weeks, He was so excited to tell me that him and one of his buddies had upgraded the electrical connection in the shed to a 50 amp connection, which basically meant that I could run everything in my trailer. I was pretty excited, and I had zero reason to doubt him. I mean, some of the things that he's done and his buddies have done have been absolutely amazing things. So I get there, I plug in, and I start setting up. I start turning on all my lights, opening my slides, and then all of a sudden I heard a loud pop. And with that pop, all the power in the trailer went out. I was kind of freaking out a little bit, but my dad came out, and together we looked at the circuit board and saw that the main GFI circuit had been popped. So I turned it back on. All the lights came back on, and 10 seconds later, the same thing happened. But this time, I noticed that there was a little bit of smoke, just a little bit, coming from the GFI plug on the island. So I called a friend who happens to be a general contractor and has been for 20 years. And even though he doesn't really know anything about RVs, the things that he was telling me actually made sense. He basically thought that maybe it was the GFI plug that had gone bad. So I should probably just go buy a new one and replace it, and everything should be fine. So that's what I did. I've replaced many plugs in my lifetime, so that part was the easiest part. I was actually feeling pretty confident after that. So once the plug was switched out, I again flipped the power back on, and 10 seconds later, I heard the same pop. And this time, the TV was smoking. Not a lot, but enough that I was actually worried. So at that point, I was done messing around. I unplugged from the 50 amp connection, and I just plugged into a standard plug in the wall to at least have the 30 amp power to be able to use my lights until I could figure out what the heck was going on. I literally thought that it was my rig. It never even occurred to me that it was or could be my non-electrician father who hooked up the so-called 50 amp power supply. So the next day, we actually called an actual electrician, another one of my dad's friends, but someone who currently was licensed and currently working as an electrician. Honestly, this is just another one of those things that if I had known I was going to start a YouTube channel, I would have recorded it. And 99% of you guys out there would probably have been shaking your heads at me, yelling at me to stop, or in awe of the fact that my trailer just didn't actually burn down. Because here's what the electrician told me. Apparently, and I'm no electrician, my trailer was getting blasted with the full 240 volts instead of being split into the two 120 volt circuits it needed. In other words, it was getting way too much power, which is why I lost my TV. I lost my original fireplace, and I lost the inverter after a couple of weeks. Major lesson learned. Only a licensed electrician will be allowed to work on my trailer, and I will always have a surge protector on every 50 amp connection that I connect to. The moral of this mistake is that even though your father may have all the good intentions in the world, don't let him and his woodsy buddies do anything that could potentially cause your life to catch fire and burn down. So there you go. 3 ginormous, tough to admit, rookie mistakes that I made so you don't have to. Learn from me, please, and trust me, your future self will thank you. Have you made any RV mistakes, or are you a total newbie and worried about making some new fantastical, comical mistakes like myself? Drop it in the comments and let's laugh and learn together. Also, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, please, because trust me, there is so much more where this came from. So until next time, I will see you.